Hi, and welcome to MBTI temperament discussion. Today we're talking about SJs, or the Guardian temperament type. I am Jan Shegdev, Clarity Coaching, and glad to have you here with us today. So let me tell you a little bit about what we'll be discussing, and we'll do these same 5 areas for each of the temperament types. First, we'll talk about generally what makes a Guardian tick. What do they want out of life and their relationships? Number 2, we'll talk about a typical career pattern for an SJ. Third, we'll talk about ways to build connection with an SJ. Fourth, we'll talk about things not to do if you have one in your life, and I'm sure you do, because these things are damaging to relationships. We'll talk about those. And then last, we'll finish up with a tip of the day for if you are a guardian or if you have one that you're close to, ways to encourage them. So let's start with what makes guardians tick. So if you joined us for the previous video, you may have learned that guardians make up 46% of the U.S. population, which is the biggest group, and they're concrete and cooperative, which means they use the data from their 5 senses to cooperate with others. So basically what that means is they want to build trust, loyalty, community with the people around them. And essentially, that's what they want out of life, a place that's safe and secure, that's noble, that has high moral values, family values. And SJs are very family-oriented as well, not just in terms of wanting to have children, but wanting to be connected. So these are the types most likely to think of their work as a family, maybe their religious community as a family, as well as their nuclear family as a family. And they're looking to create that belongingness and sense of security everywhere they go. So again, what do you want out of life if you're a guardian? Usually, you want to know what the right thing is to do and then do it. A lot of life for a guardian is spent figuring out, okay, what's the right way? How can I be the best partner? How can I be the best parent? How can I be the best employee, the best person? And then going out there and doing that. So that leads us to our next section, the career section. So if that's really important to you, what might you expect to see in terms of a career pattern for an SJ? Well, no surprise, SJs typically have very conventional career paths. They aren't prone to creatively come up with some random job to go do. They want to do something that's already got some security behind it. So things like financial services, a lot of them are in education, any kind of concrete service. So really, most things you think of in the business sector would be a good fit for an SJ. And essentially, again, thinking about what's conventional and what's essential to making society function. Those are the places where SJs really thrive. Some particularities about a career path for an SJ that are different from the other temperaments. By far, they have a much longer tenure at whatever career they pick. So all that to say, they stay longer than the rest of us. Because again, security, loyalty, longevity, all these things are very important. It's also true in terms of where they live. SJs tend to move around the least of any of the temperaments. They want to stay put, create community, put down roots. All those concepts are very important. So when you see a problem come in to an SJ's work environment, typically it's for one of 2 reasons. Number 1, they've gone so conventional in their career path that they haven't really identified what they love to do and what they're good at, and so their job performance and their fulfillment are both suffering. That's the first possibility. And the second is if and when they do have conflict in a work situation, it's usually around some kind of ethical or moral issue, or something that they view as an ethical or moral issue. For example, we talked about how guardians want to learn what the right thing is to do and do it. So if they're in a work situation where they're doing something they believe to be the right way, and a boss or a coworker is insisting that it's not the right way, that is a place where they get into conflict. Otherwise, usually conflict is not a big issue with them because, again, they're so cooperative. They want to make people happy. They want to focus on the needs of the group. So our third section today, how to build connection with an SJ. So let's remember that they're loyal, they're responsible, straightforward people. That's what they expect of you. They want you to do what you say you're going to do, be on time, be honest, be responsible, treat them like an adult, don't leave them with all the work. That's really kind of the baseline expectation of an SJ in a relationship. And then they like to share activities that focus around family or community events. So, and this relates to an SJ whether they're extroverted or introverted. You might see more out in the community events for a more extroverted SJ, but really it doesn't matter. It's always going to be focused around the family and the community in some way, shape, or form. So that's a great way to join with a guardian and build connection. Things to talk about. Again, things related to family, community, their beliefs, their maybe what they've learned recently that's been really helpful in terms of how they organize their world. So another way of saying that would be something new they've discovered that is a new right, something that's right to do. All those things are great topics of conversation with an SJ. So the opposite side now, what not to do. Some of the most painful things you could do and ways to quickly damage a relationship with an SJ, of course, do the opposite of those things we just mentioned. So it's damaging to a relationship with SJ if you're dishonest, if you're irresponsible, if you're undependable, if you say one thing and do another, if you have a dynamic in your relationship with the SJ where they're kind of parenting you and that's inappropriate. Another thing that people don't always think of that's very stressful for SJs is asking them to change. They're security and consistency oriented. They've found their ways to live life that they believe are absolutely correct. And so anytime you ask them to change, it not only is frustrating because they're very consistency-driven creatures typically, but also you may be messing with an ideal, something that has that they have decided is right, and you're telling them that that has to change. So because of that, they're the group that is the most change averse. So be careful when asking them to change, whether that's in a personal relationship or in a group or organization. They need a lot of extra support to make any kind of changes. And our last section for today, which is just the tip of the day for guardians, don't should on yourself. So guardians typically have lots of rules of what they should and shouldn't do, what's right, what's correct. And if you get too focused on those lists, sometimes guardians forget, what do I want? What do I want my life to be about? What's important to me? What makes me happy? And for that reason, sometimes guardians can have some of those midlife crisis issues a little more extreme than some of the other temperaments because they've given so little thought to what they particularly want. It's mostly been about what's right, what's correct, what's true, what should I do. So tip of the day for guardians, and if you have friends or loved ones that are guardians, encourage them to be gentle with themselves, not to live by so many shoulds, and think more about what's truly important to them and live from that center. Thanks for joining us. Join us next week. We'll be talking about artisans, the SP temperament. And if there's something that you wanted to know that I didn't talk about today, please send me an email, leave it in the comments, or on my Facebook page, and let me know, and be sure to cover it next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.